a little bit of ways to go, right? And that's exactly why we're here today. And we're going to keep the energy going. I'm so excited to introduce Rachel Morris. Rachel is a professional and accredited business coach with nearly 20 years of experience. And over the last decade, Rachel has focused her work on supporting working parents, especially mothers, who we know we're navigating the balance between career and family. And Rachel's personal experience as a mother returning to work just 6 weeks after giving birth has fueled her passion for helping organizations create supportive environments for working parents. Rachel is also the author of the book Working Mother, which has helped countless parents and companies to better understand the challenges of parenthood in the workforce. And today, she's going to talk about how organizations can really support working mothers. You all, please help me give a very warm welcome to Rachel Morris.
Hi, Rocky. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm the lucky one here in the very beautiful, sunny London town today. So looking out in my garden, it's very, very pretty. So here we are, everybody, 2024, I am told. And here we are together on International Equal Pay Day. And I am so pleased to be here. And I am so pleased that we are creating conversation about what are critically important topics. But I have to be honest, I'm also slightly baffled. I mean, why are we still having to fight for this in 2024? You know, when I was a child, I thought we'd all be wearing spacesuits by now and kind of way over the issues that my mother's generation was trying to do something about. And she's 80, but it seems kind of here we are. And I suppose so my own children don't find themselves pushing the same conversations slowly uphill. I'm personally intent on driving change in my particular area of expertise as much as I possibly can. Because you all know, sadly, only too well that we've got problems. We've got massive problems in female talent pipelines. We've got huge underrepresentation of women in leadership roles. We have nothing short of shocking attrition rates for women around the age of childbearing and child-rearing age, and serious problems, as we've already heard, with the gender pay gap, which we know is resulting in significant poverty concerns for women who have worked their whole lives through later in life. And this challenge that we are facing is painful. It's complex, and I believe it's really, really urgent. So face it we must. And I believe that to do this, we need brilliant thinkers, leaders, contributors, kind of all doing their bit to help create systemic change. Believe me, I truly fundamentally think that it needs every single one of us. And this event is holding up some great ones, not just in the speakers, but all of you guys that are listening as well. So what's my part in all of this? My opportunity to really contribute to this change came just over a decade ago. Through my role as a professional business coach, I'd already been working with female leaders in the workplaces since the late 90s, because I am most definitely that old. But in 2013, something quite specific happened to me in my career. I was approached to be part of a maternity coaching pilot program with one of our national broadcasters here in the UK. And it was during this work, through conversations with hundreds of incredible working mothers, that I began to gain insights into what a woman experiences and therefore really needs during the transitional period when she goes from being a woman that works to a working mother. So today, I'd like to share some aspects of that insight with you, because workplaces need women, and most women I've met want to work, not just for financial security, but for personal fulfillment too. Work for so many of us is such a key part of our identity. Now, I'm a practitioner. I work with people in the practice room, in dialogue for hundreds and hundreds of hours every single year. It is privileged work. And I take that responsibility very, very greatly, where you see people at their most successful and people at their absolutely most vulnerable. And none more, I have to say, than a working woman entering motherhood and then returning into the workplace as a working mother. So everything I share today comes through this really, really privileged lens. So here we go, I guess. What is the best way for organisations to really support working mothers? Here's what the women themselves have told me. Start with understanding and educating. I fundamentally believe our starting point when looking at how to support working mothers is to take time to fully understand them, their feelings, their situation, and their needs. When we truly see and hear another person, we can prepare a much more impactful response. And through seeing and hearing her, here's what I know about the transition she tells me she experiences. Firstly, she's likely to walk through 3 different phases on this journey. Phase 1 happens in the weeks before the child arrives in her life, when the soon-to-be mother is still in the workplace. That is a hairy time for sure. Phase 2 occurs in the weeks after the child has arrived, when the mother is out of her usual place of work. Do you know, funnily enough, that's another really hairy time. And phase 3, this comes in the months when she returns to the workplace as a working mother, navigating what can seem like 2 huge, important worlds about to collide. Yep, you got it right. It still remains complex for her. Now, at each of these phases, a woman typically experiences a range of emotions. And any coach listening to this will know that emotions are our core currency. It's where we do our work. If we know how a person is really feeling, then we can respond appropriately and unlock whatever it is that we are working on. So let me share an example of how this can play out in the parental transition. So for today, let's start with the early phase of the transition, because in this phase, we can see quite a lot of very heightened emotions, from excitement all the way through to fear. Unsurprisingly, I guess during this time, one very prevalent emotion that we see is that of overwhelm. Now, in the weeks before a woman's due date, she can feel caught between really, really big, important and moving parts. The needs of the workplace are often really heightened. Projects are still there to complete before she leaves, handovers to be written, and dare I even say it, a cover or a replacement to be found. I mean, who in their right mind wants to feel like they are being replaced? Alongside all of this, we've got the baby and everyone involved in its arrival getting ramped up as well. So we see this woman at this point in time totally surrounded by expectations, responsibilities, and pressure. And you know what? Somewhere in the middle of all this noise, of all this really, really important, significant chaos, is a working woman facing one of the most significant life changes that she may ever face. So, of course, she feels overwhelmed. I believe that having the knowledge that this is likely allows us to anticipate it. And this is incredibly helpful because it allows us to be prepared and it allows us to be ready to step up and to respond. Educating ourselves and others on the many different needs of the woman typically has in each of the phases is one really important way that organisations can support working mothers. Today, I've given you just one example of one emotion. Trust me, there are quite a lot. As I developed the parental transition model to give people access to precisely this level of insight and knowledge, and I'm very, very happy to share that with you outside of this conversation. The emotions and needs that I've been able to identify at each transitional phase really, really gives us some signposting to the most effective ways to respond. I was working with someone recently who was really lost. I work with quite a few people in this space that can feel really lost. a working mother. She was back in the workplace trying so hard to look like she'd got it all together, to show that she's still ambitious, even though she's now a parent, putting herself under so much pressure. So we've worked on reconnecting her to her identity, of grounding her in her sense of self, of highlighting things like those all-important values, those guiding principles, the motivations and goals that really matter to her. And importantly, we've worked on how she can communicate all of those things with the people who she needs to make sure hear it. But you don't have to be a professional coach to do this. No, because the understanding that we have is able to be shared. And I believe educating and upskilling our people in our workplaces is a must. Getting line managers, people representatives, well-being leads on the same page as the people they are supporting will only do everyone good. Briefings, presentations, coaching, discussion groups are all really, really effective ways to do this. So that's one perspective I have to offer. But there's more, because being prepared is great and it is a wonderful start. But being present enough to see and to hear somebody in that moment, now I believe that is essential. So let me explain more, I suppose, by what I mean by this. We're going to talk about listening, and we're going to talk about listening deeply. Let me ask you, when were you last really listened to without interruption or judgment? No interruption, no judgment. When did that last happen? And if you've got experience of this, I really, really wonder how it felt. And if you don't ever really feel like you're really listened to or really seen and really heard, I wonder how that feels. In my coaching practice, I sometimes use a technique where I allow people to speak for an uninterrupted block of time. So maybe for as long as 45 minutes. And as they speak, they watch, they listen, and I sit with them until they've literally nothing more to say. And what they tell me, and often themselves in that time, is, I can tell you, priceless. And when I ask people how it feels to be listened to in that way, they describe an incredibly positive and enriching experience, frequently saying that they've never been listened to quite like that in their lives before. Now, listening is a skill that can be practiced and it can be learned. It's also one that so many of us neglect. I, for one, wouldn't consider myself a natural listener, which is ironic considering the work I do. But like any other skill, I practiced and practiced it at the early stage of my career. I listened to copious amounts of people talking on BBC Radio 4 about some of the most challenging subjects that I could find, and I trained myself to stay alert, to pay attention, to retain and to recall what I heard. Through practice and intention, I became better and better, and slowly I learned to listen to the said and to the unsaid. Talking can often be revered, but is listening respected in our business cultures in quite the same way? I don't think so, and I know a lot of people don't think so either. But I believe that it is through listening that we continue to deepen our insights and our ability to find responses and solutions that people need that will actually work. I've asked so many working mothers to tell me how they are feeling, and their voices are enlightening. I've heard overwhelm described as something quiet to be hidden. I've heard it explode out of people's mouths because it can no longer be contained. And our response has to vary just as much. Some people might need help regaining a sense of control. Others might need to work through deadlines or priorities. And a different person might need to be supported through things like mindful, present focus techniques. So being able to provide an accurate response to a person's specific needs means that we have to get good at listening. We have to get better at seeing and hearing someone in the moment, even though it's so hard to do. We may find some solutions to people's needs in boardrooms. We may find them built in strategies, but we will find that the most powerful ones, I believe, come out of the mouths of the working women themselves. So I often ask myself, why aren't we really listening to them? I've seen some organizations that we work with take incredibly positive steps to try to address this. Upskilling line managers in a very focused way on how to listen without judgment. I've seen businesses give permission for people to take time away from the noisy business as usual to be part of talking groups or pairs that encourage a pure moment of attention. Mirroring the coaching process as much as they possibly can, kind of as structures along the way to enable people to be seen and to be heard. So it can be done. I suppose as we come to a close, let me just be clear that I think the responsibility for finding solutions to the challenges working mothers face is a shared one. And in response to the question, what is the best way for organizations to really support working mothers? Like many things, I don't think there is one best way, but there are lots of ways. And in turn, for me, this means that we must all play our parts. Undoubtedly, we need the macro changes to continue to take place. Changes in legislation, in processes. We will certainly see systemic changes take place as people enter our workforces that have been parented and educated in different ways too. But this is going to take generations, even more than it already has. And absolutely, businesses must take some responsibility. In my experience, some are. I've mentioned that I know organizations who focus on educating and upskilling people in the transition towards working parenthood. I know businesses who invest with care in providing coaching for individuals in the transition and for the line managers of those people too. Some businesses set up peer networks of working mothers to allow women in shared situations to have kind of a place to come together, and buddy and mentor schemes is something similar that can work as well. But for me, the bit that really makes a massive immediate difference is at the individual, at the human level. And what's great is that's the bit that's within the control of each and every one of us. Because I think we've all got a personal responsibility in this. The responsibility for educating ourselves, for increasing our understanding, the responsibility for slowing down and noticing the people around us who really do need support, and the responsibility for responding courageously to what we see. Now, I'm mindful I've taken up the time that I have available today, but I'm going to go through the chats before we come on to the Q&A and see if I can answer some of your questions or observe some of your comments then. But I really thank you for the opportunity to share my view with you today. I'm a passionate advocate for all working women, and especially for working mothers during what can be such a critical time in their life and careers. You can find out more about me and my work in the world of parental coaching on LinkedIn. I put it in the chat, through my business website, which is motionlearning.com, and also via my new book, which you can get out both here in the UK and North America. I wrote the book for it to be helpful, to help women at a time they seem to so critically need it, and to enable them to have kind of healthy and fulfilling lives, both at work and at home. So I really hope that's been useful. Thank you ever so much for having me, Rocky, here with you guys today.
Rachel, you were amazing. And I think sometimes we think it's these huge initiatives, but the thing that resonates with me is this really learning how to listen, because that's where we find the solutions. I could listen to you all day. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you. We'll see you back for the Q&A. And now I'm going to turn the stage over back to Ashley for our next poll question.
All right, listen up, everyone. It's going to be a quick one, but this is a good one to have as a quick one because this is a statistic we see a lot. According to recent data, how many years will it take to close the global gender pay gap at the current rate of progress? All right, so the global gender pay gap. Go ahead. We have a few seconds remaining, so you got to get those fast fingers on the mouse and put in your responses. Let's see what people think. And we're going to do a little 3, 2, 1 countdown and end this interaction. And I didn't show the response there. I got so excited, but I know the answer, which is 131 years. Wah, wah, wah. So again, this is why we're here, to Rachel's point, like understanding people's experience, having bold conversations, bringing new awareness in the world is key to making that 131 years shorter. So without further ado, I will exit stage right and hand it back on over to Rock.